Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Hogan's Alley. In this edition, we are going to investigate and discuss one of the parts of the swing that a lot of people don't talk about, and that's the waggle. You know, what is the waggle? Is it something to just keep you loose and feeling ready for your swing, or is it something that is really important? And what does Hogan think about it? So in this segment, we're going to find out exactly what Hogan says about the waggle, what he thinks is the important parts about the waggle, and then we're also going to look into my mentor, John Sclee, his what he thinks about the waggle and what he has advocated in maximum golf. So let's go and check out Hogan first and see exactly what Hogan says about what do the hands do in the beginning of the swing. Okay? Because remember, the waggle is part of the swing. It's part of your, after you're set up, it is part of the swing. And that's what we're going to go look into right now. So in looking in Hogan's book, Modern Fundamentals of Golf, 5 Lessons, on page 65, what we see is that Hogan says that the bridge between the address and the actual start of the backswing is the waggle. If we read on, as it states, as a golfer looks at his objective and figures out the kind of shot he's going to play, his instinct takes over. He waggles the club back and forth. Possibly because the word waggle suggests that any aimless kind of oscillation fills the bill, many golfers have the mistaken idea that it doesn't really matter how you waggle the club. To put it another way, they think the only purpose in waggling is to loosen yourself up so you won't be tense or rigid. There's a great deal more to the waggle than that. It is an extremely important part of shot making. Okay, so what you have to understand is that in the waggle there is a purpose for it, and as he goes on, it says that as the golfer takes the club back on the waggle, he accustoms himself to the path the club will be taking. Moving on to 66, his actual backswing. As he waggles the club forward, he adjusts himself so that the face of the club will be coming into the ball square and on line. Let's take a look at that. So for the first part of the waggle, what you have to understand is it's not just a motion that you're doing to keep your body from being too tense. It actually has a purpose, okay? Hogan talks about that purpose being almost like a starting point for understanding how the club head gets into the hitting area, how the club head comes back to the ball. There's a feeling in the hands that when you're waggling it correctly, as Hogan states, that when you waggle and you come back to the ball, toward the ball, you'll actually see how the club face squares up to the ball. And that should set your mind at ease as you're going to take your backswing and go into the ball. What you want to feel is that you know exactly where that club head is coming into the ball. So that is why he talks about the waggle as almost a mini swing. And what we'll see in just a minute is the actual movement of the waggle. Okay? For right now, we just want to make sure you understand that there is a purpose to it than just trying to make sure you're loose and not tense as you're getting over the shot. All right? So it's an actual purpose of feeling where the club head is going as it's coming in toward the hitting area. Okay? So let's read on and see what Hogan says about the actual movement of the waggle and how to do it, and how to do it properly. Continuing in the book, on page 66, what we find is the actual description of what Hogan says about the waggle. In the waggle, the left hand is the controlling hand. Remember that. The right hand works along with the club. Each time you waggle the club back, the right elbow should hit the front part of your right hip, just about where your watch pocket is. In those days, it was just above our pocket of today. When this takes place, the left elbow as it must, comes out slightly. The lower part of the arm from the elbow down rotates a little, and the left hand moves 3 inches or so past the ball toward the target. As the hands move back to the ball on the forward waggle, the left hand also moves an inch or two past the ball toward the target. Once you get yourself all set up, feeling the weight distributed properly on your left foot and your right foot, getting yourself set up toward the ball and the target, what you're going to find is that this is the opportunity to feel what the waggle is all about. Remember, Hogan said, make sure it's controlled by the left hand. The right hand just goes along for the ride. So, in practicing this, what you want to see is that the waggle, the left hand controls it. It moves forward about 2 to 3 inches. The left elbow turns slightly. The left arm from the elbow down to the left wrist turns slightly out. The right hand going along for the ride. The right elbow then tucks and hits just above the right hip. So it looks just like this when you take it back. Okay? You'll notice that the right elbow will come toward the hip. The club will move about 2 to 3 feet behind the ball. And what you'll feel is you'll feel that controlling factor with the left hand. What I suggest for a lot of people to do is to get set up, take your right hand off, put it behind your back, and then just feel what the left hand is supposed to do. Do it slow so that you can feel that it is the controlling factor. You're not pulling back with the right hand. You're actually allowing the left hand to do all the work. Okay? Left hand goes 2 to 3 inches past the ball. Now, this is where you put the right hand back on the club. And when you waggle, make sure that you feel the left hand going forward. Right elbow tucking slightly. Left hand 2 to 3 inches above. Okay? Now, that's the backward waggle. The forward waggle is allowing the club head to come into where it would be square to your target line, allowing your mind to envision a proper hit. Okay? You want to envision the club head coming in through the ball, watching as the leading edge of the club face goes toward the ball. So, the hands slightly ahead, bringing the hands back. What you'll see is that the left hand is still ahead of the ball. And this is where Hogan says, you want to make sure that the left hand is ahead of the ball on the backward waggle and ahead of the ball on the forward waggle. That's that premise that he talked about. The hands always lead a trailing club head. The hands are always ahead of the club head in the swing. John Sclee was one that really brought that about, making sure that as you're going through your swing, the hands are always ahead of the club head. And for Hogan, this was a way to show his mind that in the waggle, that the hands were always leading a trailing club head. Now, how many times do you do the waggle? How many times do you do it before you actually go into your shot? And that is up to you. So it's a personal thing. Like Hogan says in his book, he said, I don't want you to feel like you have to groove it to the exact amount. Feel it. It's a feeling that you want to accomplish as you're getting ready for your shot, as you're settling for your shot. You're waggling, you're looking at your target line. It's a feeling that you want to have. Okay? Now, also, how fast, how slow, what sort of tempo do you want to use? Well, Hogan goes even further in his book, you might want to check it out, and talks about tempo. He says that the waggle is something that you should be able to establish a tempo before the shot. each shot may be a little different in that it might be a quicker tempo, a slower tempo. So what he says is that when you're doing your waggle, if it's a smooth, slow tempo, you want a smooth, slow waggle. So it would be, you would feel the waggle, you would feel the shot. He says in his book too, he has rehearsed that swing and that shot in his mind, and through his waggle, he would be surprised if the shot didn't come off correctly. If he was going to hit, say, a harder shot, maybe a shot that he wanted to keep low into the wind, a hard driving one, he would quicken his waggle tempo just to feel that he needed more power, he needed more energy going into the shot. So make sure that you establish those points in your waggle, all right, and then develop your own feeling for that shot, all right. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to go check on what John Sclee did to enhance what Hogan had to say about the waggle, and what his idea of a waggle was. And that is called the preview takeaway. And what we're doing in the preview takeaway is exactly what Hogan's doing in the waggle. You're previewing what not only your club is doing going into the hitting area, but your whole body. So let's go take a look and see what John says about that. Okay. In Maximum Golf, in the book, the Maximum Golf book, Fundamental 5 is once you are set up to your target, use a preview takeaway to feel the shot you have selected before you hit it to your target. He goes on to say that the preview takeaway is a rehearsal of impact on the power plane. It is a smooth, slow motion preview of what your body wants to do. So what John did is he took it a little further and said, hey, if we can show our body or show our mind what our body is supposed to be doing through the hitting area, let's do it with not only the club head, but the hands, the arms, the shoulders, the knees, the feet, everything going down through the hitting area. Okay? So let's take a look at that. In Maximum Golf, John talks about the impact address position, and the preview takeaway is a preview of what happens in the hitting area. And what he advocated, which is good for the mental aspect of those students that have not been in the hitting area properly, is that you would cock the wrists and turn the shoulders slightly until the hands get just past the right knee. From this position right here, the lower body would start the swing. So in this, the preview takeaway, the lower body would start the action of going back toward the ball in the hitting area. You would use your knees and hips to turn. The trunk of the body and the shoulders will follow, as will the hands and arms, until the club gets back toward the ball. In this motion, what we're trying to achieve is a feeling of what the body feels like as it approaches the hitting area. Hogan talked about what the club head was doing as it approached the hitting area. John took it another step further and said, well, if we're showing the mind what the club head is doing in the hitting area, why can't we just show the body what it's doing as it is approaching the hitting area? So you can cock the wrist, turn the shoulders until the hands get past the right knee. Of course, there's no lower body movement yet. We haven't turned enough to use the knees and the hips. But from this position, lower body always starts first. So you would get to the point where you use a rocking motion for the preview takeaway. You would be looking at your target, gazing back at the ball, to the target, to the ball, and do this a number of times. Now remember, the lower body should act like it does in the swing. So when you are rotating forward, the weight goes to the outside of the left foot. The right heel comes off the ground. You are actually previewing the hands going ahead of the club head. You are actually feeling the rotation of the body without any movement, as far as side-to-side movement. So make sure that you feel that, and it's something that you might want to practice. You might want to incorporate in your routine. It's just another idea that can help you establish yourself right before you get to actually going through the swing. Now, in the next segment, we're going to go over how to start the swing. The trigger. What is the trigger? If the waggle is the bridge between the address position and the swing, if that's the bridge, what is it bridging to? There has to be a trigger. There has to be more of a trigger. So we're going to go into that next time. So I hope that this has helped you understand a little bit more about what Hogan wanted people to understand about the waggle. That it wasn't something that was instituted just to keep you loose at the ball. It had a purpose. John built on that purpose and said, why not add the body? So if you like, you can do it separately, you can do it together. Experience it. Try it for yourself and see if you can actually feel what your body is going to do at the moment of impact. So hope you enjoyed this part of Hogan's Alley, and I will see you next segment.